Converging Media, A New Introduction to Mass Comm, Chapter 12, Media Theory and Research, Part 1. Media research is the systematic and scientific investigation of communication processes and effects that often base its exploration on theories of media and communication. Some types of media research, such as that conducted by market research firms, and more oriented to answering practical questions, such as whether audience members remember a particular advertisement or their impressions of a product or brand, or their media use and consumption habits. Media research methodology, or those of us who actually study media theory and how media theory impacts other people, we do research on how media can take many forms and how it entails social scientific research using quantitative tools and statistical analysis as well as qualitative methods to create focus groups where we analyze and we ask people multiple questions. So in sum, media research is multidimensional, and media research allows for research and researcher flexibility, meaning that oftentimes those of us who study media research or in the media research and theory field are able to study several different types of things that often social science and physical science researchers are not allowed to do, which is pretty cool. So, the role of theory in research. For media professionals, research may seem more important than theory. Um, Media professionals often focus more on facilitating and analyzing research, while media scholars and professionals focus on the use of media theory and its use in research projects and analysis of research outcomes. So, for example, my research focuses on how people use social media and what does that mean about them, and also hashtags. Why do people use hashtags? Research findings help to shape public policies on media and media industries. And the same goes for those of us who are professors or who are scholars in the field. We hope that our research impacts people and helps people to better understand how the media impacts their life and ways that they can challenge the media to not completely dominate what they experience. Mass society and mass communication. A number of larger social, political, cultural, and scientific factors throughout the course of history have greatly influenced the study of mass communication and media theories. In your text, they go on to explore some of those areas more specifically. But the main thing that you want to keep in mind is that the mass media is all encompassing. It has been around since most of us have been alive, and it has a great influence on what we do, how we act, what we buy, and how we communicate, which is really important. Media effects research. It's been well established that media harms people. And we've seen that through documentaries, through thousands of studies that are done every year that showcases this. And new and powerful communication technologies help to create new opportunities for controlling people's actions, behaviors, and minds. So if you look at the image here, it kind of asserts that people are sheeple. Erica Badu and other scholars or other public political figures kind of refer to people as sheeple. There's a theory called groupthink where people often say that people want somebody to look up to. People don't want to have to think for themselves. And the media operates in the same way, saying that, hey, you trust us, so don't think. Focus on what we're saying and believe what we're saying because we're trustworthy. Well, based on what we've been studying this semester, that can actually be come into question because we know that people who work in the media, who organize the media, who own the media essentially have the impact of changing the dialogue, of setting forth ideology, and controlling people's behavior if they don't ask questions and if they aren't agent in trying to make change or to understand what's being communicated to them. So, with that said, media effects continue to be a dominant concern for researchers and practitioners as well. Propaganda and the magic bullet. Some of the earliest media effects research was conducted to better understand how mass communication persuaded people. During World War I, both the US and Germany employed film and other media, including posters, as instruments of propaganda to generate public support for their positions in the war. Attempts to influence an audience through mass communication is called propaganda and usually involves total control of the transmission of information, often without the audience knowing who is controlling the message. like the picture or the poster seen here, which epitomizes Uncle Sam saying, "I want you for U.S. Army, nearest recruiting station." And this is an example of an actual real propagated poster that was used during the war to recruit men to participate in saving their country and doing a favor for their uncle. Political scientist Harold Laswell, during his analysis of World War I, propaganda efforts used the term hypodermic needle to describe the concept that media can act like a drug being injected into a passive audience. The hypodermic needle model assumes that messages have a profound, direct, and uniform impact on individuals. This model has also been called the magic bullet model of communication and derives largely from learning theory and simple stimulus response models in behavioral psychology. And so you can see how what we do in media theory and media research often transcends to other areas like psychology, sociology, and education. So we call that interdisciplinary work. The Pain Fund. Between 1928 and 1933, some of the most prominent psychologists, sociologists, and educators of the day conducted the Pain Fund studies, and these were published in 1933. They included a 12-volume report on the impact of film viewing on children. These studies provided detailed examination of the effects of film in wide-ranging areas, including sleep patterns, attitudes about violence, delinquent behavior, and knowledge about foreign cultures. And we'll kind of talk about the development and redefinition of the Pain Fund in a little bit. Television and violence. Much television programming is educational and entertaining, and much is prepared with violence, sex, and profanity. Consequently, many adult viewers and policymakers have pondered the effects of extended television viewing on the next generation. They question, are children learning to be overly aggressive, imitating what they see on the television screen? Are they learning more about the Three Stooges than the three branches of government? So, hundreds of studies have been conducted and millions of dollars have been spent to investigate how TV violence actually affects children. Among the first was a study that claimed television had become the new Pied Piper, providing a model, often not a good model, for children to imitate. Yet, few early analyses could provide conclusive evidence that exposure to TV violence would have negative consequences on the real world. And so these two images, I think, kind of help to speak to this notion of television and violence. We often see that people who play video games, who play violent video games, have been shown to often have a different type of aggression. People who may listen to violent music, people who may watch a lot of movies where there is violence, in some cases do have the propensity to actually be more violent. And so you have to question, is it that which is within them, or have they been actually influenced by the media that they consume? And what scholars consistently find in the research and the data is that it could be a little bit of both, right? You can watch something that's really, really violent. I'm a fan of The Walking Dead. I love seeing The Walking Dead. I love seeing the gore and the grim that is a part of the show, and understanding that the violence is there. I love seeing zombies and all those things, but am I going to actually carry that out? Am I actually going to go and hurt people? No. So we have to consider the way in which the media perpetuates ideas and ideologies and plants those into our head, but then also our common sense and our media literacy, which we talked about at the beginning of the semester, and our ability to kind of assess and reassess our space within that which we view. So your text talks about the mean world syndrome, and this is a syndrome in which people perceive the world as a more dangerous place than it actually is based on the media that they view and participate in. So going back to my favorite show, The Walking Dead, a lot of people have adapted this survivalist model of living because they believe that, oh, zombies are going to attack us, or oh, these things are going to happen in the world. And so I'm not here to suggest that that won't happen, nor will I suggest that it will, but I think when we think about the mean world syndrome and we connect it with the media, there's a plausible defense or a plausible line of evidence that showcases that if you do not have any type of media that counters the one thing that you are seeing consistently, then oftentimes you may think in that way. And so when we think about this and apply it back to the images that are seen of black men and women on television and how we're viewed in not the most pleasing lights, we have to consider that if people don't have a counter to that, then that's what they think. So then we have to work to actually control those images and stop those images of us and of things that are stereotypical to be dismantled in that way. We have to actually work to dismantle them. We have to actually take a stand against those images and kind of counteract that mean world syndrome or the ideology and stereotypes that exist. The Bobo doll studies in the 1950s, the Bobo doll study was initiated and it showed various results of children's initial response to television. So basically, the research in the 1950s that was brought on by Albert Bandura, who was a psychologist, and others demonstrated that children exposed to TV violence were more likely to repeat the behavior they had witnessed, like, for example, beating the Bobo doll, as well as become more aggressive while they were still in the laboratory. Although these studies suggested that children learn by watching others, effects were documented in a laboratory setting only. So they did not follow these kids home, they did not follow them over time. So research was also research that was conducted could not really confirm or deny that this aggression transisted or that these kids, when they became adults, continued to be aggressive. So, it had various results. Some scholars like to defend this study, some scholars like to work against it because they feel like, well, you didn't really do what you said you were going to do. You said you were going to follow these kids and figure out, how TV and how the media impacted them. And all you did was study them directly after they viewed something. And so, the basis of your analysis, the basis of your study could be biased and could actually be skewed. But it's still an important study. So this concludes part 1 of our chapter 12. Chapter 2 will be next.